This is the time of the week that we discuss travel and places that you could potentially visit. We started this off during the pandemic when we were all dreaming of leaving our homes and getting out of lockdown, and it has continued since then. We've added to our list of countries and locations to speak about. Joining me now is a regular on the show now, Ivana Perkovic, travel vlogger and public speaker, as well as international business consultant. Thank you so much, Ivana, for taking the time. We're talking about the Philippines today. My basic understanding of it is that there's a lot of good food, a lot of beaches. What more can you tell us?
Oh my goodness, Alex. The Philippines is really one of my favorite destinations in Southeast Asia because it is such a unique destination. The Philippines has, first of all, 7,000 islands, of which some are even uninhabited. But then the inhabited islands mostly have their own culture and sometimes even their own language. So even if you visit just two islands in the Philippines, you will see two such different sites and experience so many different things in just one country. Then I think, secondly, one of the reasons why the Philippines is one of my favorite tropical destinations in the world also is because just like Indians, Filipinos are some of the nicest people that you will ever meet in your life. Somehow, happiness and joy are completely coded in their DNA, and they're an absolute pleasure to be around. And then finally, I think why the Philippines should be on everyone's bucket list is because there is something for every traveler there. Whether you're a history buff or a nature lover, the Philippines has it all. The Philippines used to be a Spanish colony, so there's a very, very rich cultural influence from the Spanish colonizers that is left over and actually completely incorporated in the local Filipino culture. And then also there is so many natural wonders from, for instance, the beautiful waterfalls to the chocolate hills, which we'll be discussing in a second. There's just so much to see. So I don't think anybody would get bored in the Philippines, but definitely get inspired. And there's also a lot of delicious foods.
About some of that food. I don't know if my experience of Filipinos is enough, but I've also found that they have amazing voices. There are a lot of very, very good singers in the
They
Philippines.
are.
But,
True.
I want to talk, you said 7,000 islands. That's too much to cover, obviously, on one trip. And what would you say that people should take in terms of the number of days, and where do you suggest that they go?
So, for any beginner traveler in the Philippines, I would recommend to travel no less than for a week. And the good thing about the Philippines is that you can actually cover two islands in a week easily and without getting stressed. So the first island that I would recommend to any beginner is Cebu. Cebu is easily reachable. There is a extremely well-developed airport there, but also getting around the island is very easy. Of course, you can always hire a private driver if you prefer that, but there are also a lot of taxis there and also a lot of public buses if you are traveling on a budget. Then Cebu actually offers also a lot of natural wonders. It's interesting because Kawasan Falls, the famous Instagram waterfall, is actually even more beautiful in real life. I was so surprised because I've seen so many pictures of Kawasan Falls on Instagram, but then when you get there, the entry fee is only 70 rupees, so also very affordable for budget travelers. It's actually a lot more beautiful. However, because Kawasan Falls is so popular, it's also a little bit more crowded. And there, Cebu also offers a lot for people who want to go off the beaten path because there are actually also a lot of waterfalls on Cebu, which are not popular yet, undiscovered, but equally as beautiful as Kawasan Falls. And then if you're a history buff, oh my gosh, you really can't miss a city tour in Cebu City. So first of all, go to Magellan's Cross, then Fort San Pedro, then you have the Yup San Diego House. They all give an extremely good insight into where Cebuano culture originates from and why people live their life the way they live right now. And yeah, like you said, Filipinos are so sweet and so easygoing. They're always very happy to talk about their own culture. So Cebu is a really, really great starting point. But then actually, it's also very easy to take a ferry to Bohol. Round trip ferry ticket to Bohol will actually cost you 1,200 rupees. And then Bohol, I would say, is more for the natural wonders. Something that you absolutely cannot miss on Bohol is the Tarsier Sanctuary. Before I went there, I had never heard of tarsiers in my life. It's actually very, very cute animals. They're about this tiny and they look like baby Yodas. They're nocturnal animals and they've built the sanctuary so people can observe them. The entry fee is 100 rupees and all the proceeds obviously go into preservation of the animals. Then you have to see the chocolate hills. These are hills which are shaped in the shape of Hershey's Kisses, actually. And the interesting thing about it is that if you get to the viewpoint, for which the entry fee is also 100 rupees, it's not just, one or two or three hills. It's like a whole view completely filled with all these Hershey's Kisses hills. It's very, very interesting to see. And then the final thing, which I think is an absolute must do wherever you go in the Philippines, is an island hopping tour. An island hopping tour in the Philippines will cost you anywhere from 1,500 rupees for a minimum group of three people. And obviously, you can make it as expensive as you want it. But you'll actually go to a sandbank, something that the Philippines is also super, super famous for. And then also to this island called Balikasag, which is easily reachable from Bohol, where you can go snorkeling. And honestly, I have rarely seen such crystal clear waters in my life and such well-preserved coral and turtles, which are actually not that scared to get close to humans. So those two islands would be my absolute top recommendation if you want to, get the most bang for your buck out of a week in the Philippines.
Thinking about Yoda, as he would say, uh, going to the Philippines, happy you would be. Uh, but
Yes,
uh, but let's talk about how you get there. How
yes.
much would it cost you? Where would you land? And I'm guessing you would first go to the first location that you said, the first island,
Yeah.
and then you would go to the second. But where all would you go in terms of where do you land? How much does it cost? And
Yes.
where do you take your plane back?
So this is very important, and also one of the reasons why I think the Philippines is such a unique destination and still quite undiscovered in Southeast Asia. There are actually, unfortunately, no direct flights to the Philippines, and particularly the island Cebu from India. So you will always have to take a connecting flight through Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur or Singapore. Luckily, I feel the flights are quite the same as the flights towards Europe. If you go in a little bit, if you book a little bit more in advance, you can definitely get your ticket for about 40 to 50K. And obviously, if you go in more popular times, a ticket will cost you about 70K. But do keep in mind that the travel times will be anywhere near 12 to 16 hours because of the layovers that you have to take. And the main island that I would recommend for landing would definitely be Cebu.
That covers it. So it's a significant amount of travel time because of the
It
fact
is.
that there is no direct flight. So yeah, I mean, I think people should factor that into the week that they're spending, maybe extend it to 10 days to really make use of it.
Yeah.
But then if you already talked about 40,000 rupees for a round trip by air through that connecting flight, then what is the kind of budget that you would need to spend or have. And if you split it up between, like you said, luxury and otherwise, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
So I think actually the good news is that the airfare would be your biggest spend. I think if you would like to go on a budget accommodation, a really good Airbnb will cost you 2K a night in Cebu, and in Bohol it might be a little bit more, so maybe 3K a night. If you calculate that for 10 days, that would be about 20,000 rupees. The good news is also that actually food in the Philippines, you can make it as expensive or as cheap as possible. You can get a really, really good street food meal already from anywhere between 200 to 400 rupees. So if you calculate that in a daily budget, daily food budget, 3 meals a day, I think you should be able to manage it on a budget of 1,000 rupees. So again, if you do that times 10, that would be 10,000 rupees. So on top of the other 20K, you're now paying for accommodation and the food expenses, about 30K on a budget we're talking here. And then again, really good news is that the entry fees for the attractions are really not expensive. They go anywhere from 50 rupees up to a max 100 rupees. So I think if you go to all the attractions that I mentioned, you would pay honestly not more than 800 rupees on entry fees. And that's where I'm like staying on the higher end. I think actually it should be cheaper than that. So then also the ferry costs, which would be about 1,200 rupees for a round trip. I think honestly, if you're on a budget, you should be able to manage in 10 days for 40K, 45K. And then if you want to make it a little bit more luxury, I would definitely count on anywhere between 60K, 70K. And if you want to go really luxury, then obviously it will be 80K. And a total budget for 10 days, including the airfare, might be like somewhere around 1.2 lakh, 1.3 lakh, something like that. I think you will have a great time. The thing, I think it's a fair thing to mention that definitely the travel time there is quite significant and there are layovers. However, because it is such a unique destination, I definitely think the travel is worth it. Before I went to the Philippines myself, it was something that always held me back personally. But then when I went there, it rose definitely into my top three destinations in the world when it comes down to tropical destinations, because it's such a unique country, it's such a unique culture, and the Filipinos are so unique. Like I haven't seen that type of DNA anywhere else but in India. So for me, actually, also it really felt like home in the Philippines.
That's certainly something to consider. The other factor that a lot of Indians will be very mindful of, I think, Ivana, is the food. So, is there enough of a mix of food that'll take care of vegetarians? Non. I know that you're vegetarian. So,
Yes.
is there enough for vegetarians?
So there is enough for vegetarians. However, keep in mind that the level of masalas that we have here in India is not there in the Philippines. So if you're a non-veg person, you will be in heaven. You have to try adobo, which is a almost like a national dish. It's a meat stew actually, which is usually made with chicken and or mutton. For vegetarians, you must try the jackfruit curry. It is something that I was absolutely obsessed with, and now even I make it in my home. So the jackfruit curry is actually a young jackfruit cooked in coconut milk with ginger. And I know it sounds very simple, especially when we're used to so many masalas in India, but it is so delicious. I dream about it and
Right,
I make it at home because it is so good.
right,
In general, in terms of vegetarian food, you will definitely be able to find plenty of vegetarian food.
right.
Philippines is actually also very popular for the fruit, so you have to try mango as well. So yeah, you will manage as a vegetarian, but it is not like a vegetarian country like India.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's something for everybody, and certainly something to put on your list. Thank you so much, Ivana, for taking
Thank
the
you,
time.
Alex.